Hello, welcome back to another video. I have finally decided it's time for me to talk about what it was like being a pandemic mum. I gave birth to Elliot during the height of the first lockdown, and I realised the other day that I've not really even spoken about that very much, and I've got quite a few more followers on my channel now, and now we're approaching another second national lockdown. I thought it was high time that I actually spoke about what it was like giving birth during a pandemic and during a lockdown, because I understand there are going to be quite a few more mamas out there that are going to be in the same boat. So I'm hoping this video might find a mum, find a family who is feeling a little bit anxious at the moment, and I want to reassure you, and I would like you to listen to my story of what it's like of giving birth during lockdown. Let's get straight into it, because this might be a bit of a long chatty one depending on how long Elliot has his nap for. So Elliot is now 6 months old. He was born on the 8th of May, so that was the height of the first national lockdown here in the UK, and as of tomorrow we go into another lockdown, so there are going to be more families going through the same thing that we went through. So I thought this video was really important, and it was about time I shared it. On the 8th of May, Elliot was born. I was induced. I won't talk too much about my labour and birth story because I have got a whole video on that, but I've not actually spoken about the experience too much of the kind of lockdown baby. I touched upon what happened in the video a little bit. So after Elliot was born, we did end up having 5 days in hospital on our own without any visitors, and I didn't really speak about that on the video when we did the birth story, because we actually filmed the birth story. Come here, sorry dog. We actually filmed the birth story like a week after Elliot was born, because I just wanted to film it when it was really fresh in my mind, and my stay in hospital was obviously still quite raw. I'd only been home from the hospital for a couple of days, and I wasn't really ready to talk about my experience of being in hospital alone as a new mum, because it was definitely challenging. I mean, I still managed to have a really positive birth experience. It was still the most amazing experience of my life. I think about it every single day, you know, how amazing and how incredibly lucky I feel that I was able to have a fairly natural birth. I was induced, so I don't really know if that counts as a natural birth, but I gave birth naturally without a lot of pain relief. And I just want to be an advocate for new mums and new families out there, and basically to warn you but not make you feel alarmed, because my pregnancy with Elliot was really low risk. It was really smooth. There were no problems, no complications, and I naively expected to give birth and totter out of the hospital 6 hours later and be home the same day, or, you know, if it was in the night time, the following day kind of thing. I never ever in my wildest dreams expected to be in hospital for 5 days. Once the baby's born, they will take like I think they take like a heel test, and they'll take like blood from their heel to basically just check that baby's okay and everything like that. And that first test, his infection level was just slightly over what they liked. So they kept me in hospital. So what they do in that case is they will then retest the blood in 12 hours time, and that's kind of it's like a 12-hour cycle. And obviously at that stage he hadn't had any colostrum, he hadn't had any like milk with my antibodies and stuff like that. So we ended up being in hospital for the first day, and again I naively thought that I would just be home the next day, but then I think it might have been the day after he was born, there was also a little bit of jaundice that was picked up, so we had to put him on one of the bilirubin blankets. So it's like this kind of UV light blanket that they lay the baby on, and he had to wear like little goggles and stuff like that. And he also still had this infection, so he had like a little cannulary infection thing in his little hand, and because he was early, it was all a little bit of a whirlwind experience for me. He was born, I think, just under 3 weeks before his due date, so he was early. I wasn't expecting to end up being in hospital on my own, and it was really very difficult. It was the hardest 5 days of my life. I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to sugarcoat it to anyone. But I would just like to make families aware, even if you've had a really smooth pregnancy, don't be naive like me and think that it guarantees that you're going to be home the same day as your baby's born. Plan for the worst, you know, whatever happens from there, you won't be surprised like I was. I think that was what was most frustrating for me, was because I just wasn't expecting to be kept in hospital with him for 5 days, and I hadn't really planned myself for that eventuality. I wasn't at all prepared for it. I was really I clued myself up on birth, and I read a lot, and I was quite, you know, well informed about what to expect, and I think that's what helped me get through a induced labour with like minimal pain relief, because I was sort of very knowledgeable, well, as knowledgeable as an amateur, not a midwife kind of person can be. I like to be well informed about things, but I just wasn't really planning to be in hospital. I mean nobody plans that, but I know that that's why they say pack things in your hospital bag, and I really didn't pack enough in my hospital bag. I packed a little bit extra, but I just genuinely never expected to be in for 5 days, and it is really tough. Obviously, as a disclaimer, all hospitals I think have their own rules and regulations on what happens after you go onto the ward after your baby's born, but at the time of the first lockdown, our local hospital, it was no visitors once you were on a ward. That was just the way it was, and I understand a lot of people's frustration over it, but for me, as hard as it was, because you're on a ward with, I think I was one of 6 on the ward, would I have wanted other people's partners coming in and out of the hospital? You don't know if they're going to work, they might have been key workers, bringing COVID in with your newborn baby who's got an infection and jaundice. Would you want to risk having COVID brought in? And for me, the answer was no. We had been isolating the whole of lockdown. We literally didn't go anywhere. We're having our shopping delivered. My husband was off work as well with me, but you just don't know what everyone else's situation is going to be at that given time. I think that's why our hospital wasn't allowing partners on the ward, because it was a ward with quite a few other people. So if everyone had a visitor on the ward, there would have been like 12 people on the ward, which the infection level is then a lot higher, isn't it, if there's more people on the ward? So as difficult as it was, I had to accept it. The thought of someone bringing COVID in when I had a baby that had an infection and was already, his immune system wasn't obviously that great at the time, it was so frightening thinking that COVID could have been brought in. As much as I would have loved my husband or my mum, you know, it's a really difficult situation, and I just want everyone to, like new families, to be aware of all the eventualities. So in the end, like I say, we were in for 5 days because his infection level kept going up and down, and the jaundice, they weren't happy with his like jaundice levels. And breastfeeding, I was also breastfeeding, so it was literally the most challenging, hardest 5 days of my life. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, it was so hard. I cried every day. I cried quite a lot of the day, because obviously you've just given birth, you're on this enormous high because you've just had your baby, but you're also really low because you can't share your beautiful baby with your husband or your partner, and you're on your own in this ward. It was incredibly lonely, and the only thing that got me through was FaceTime. I was constantly FaceTiming, ringing my husband, ringing my mum, speaking to people on the internet, but obviously it's not the same. But if I could go back and tell myself anything, like if I could go back and tell myself one thing, it would just be that you can do this. Every day just felt like I was just getting through each day, and in the end I was at my wit's end, just because you're constantly waiting for like results to come back, and they're constantly taking like blood from the baby to check their infections. They're constantly having to have their heel pricked, and then they're crying, and it is really, really hard. But all you've got to think is that you will get through it, and your baby depends on, as you know, as horrible and as hard as it is, they're keeping you there for a reason, and with infection at the moment you can't blame the hospitals for wanting to be 100% getting your baby stronger for you to get them sent home eventually, and they wouldn't be keeping you there if they didn't need to, especially at the moment. So it was literally the hardest thing that I ever had to go through, and I think that's why I've not spoken about it yet. He's literally 6 months old this week, and this is the first time that I've addressed it on my channel, because it is still quite raw, and this whole lockdown thing coming about again has definitely brought it up. Like, it's brought it back to the surface for me, and you know, it gives me knots in my stomach thinking about those 5 days and how, you know, my husband missed out on the first 5 days of Elliot's life, and how obviously, you know, it's not, you'd never choose that, would you? But at the same time, that was the cards that we got dealt, and you just have to survive every single day, and it is challenging. And to be honest, you have to do whatever you can in order to survive those days, and the only thing that got me through, like I say, was the FaceTiming and just telling myself this is what Elliot needs. He has got to get better, he's got to get strong, and you just live through every day, and you kind of live through every hour. It's long, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't think I slept in those 5 days in the hospital. I was constantly on edge, and then they sort of do checks on you every, like, I think it's like every 4 hours, or maybe a bit longer. So like in the night they'll wake you up to do your checks, to check that you're okay and check the baby's okay. And yeah, I genuinely, I was not prepared for that at all. And even if this video helps one person prepare themselves for, oh okay, yeah, I didn't think of that, then my job here is done. But you can do it, and you've got to have a positive outlook to get through something like this. You can't go, you know, the more you're stressed about, oh my god, what if my partner's not allowed on the wall with me after the baby's born, the worse you're going to make it for yourself. And you, as hard as it is, allow yourself to feel that grief of being alone, and you've got to just ride the wave through it, because it will be harder if you're making it more of a ordeal than it needs to be. You just have to live through it. These are crazy times at the moment, and we are literally living through history. These are uncharted waters, but you can get through it. And the more you rely on your support network through your FaceTime and phone calls, just even if you're constantly on the phone for support, just do whatever you need to do to get through those days. I mean, hopefully it won't be as long as 5 days like it was for me, but even a couple of days felt long when you're on your own with a new baby. All you want to do is be with your loved ones and share your beautiful bundle of joy. But yeah, it is really hard, and I just want to make my experience, although it was the hardest 5 days of my life, I also think it's important for me to share that you can do it. And 6 months later, I have got a beautiful, fighting fit, strong little boy, and it is becoming a distant memory now. But maybe if I'd have prepared myself a little bit more for the eventuality of staying in hospital, I might have dealt with it a little bit better. Just realised I should have said that noise you might be able to hear is my dog chewing on her bone. Very appropriate. So that's the reason I thought it's time for me to sit down and just have a chat about the whole thing with you. And I think I've covered most of the things, but yeah, I guess I haven't wanted to talk about it really, because it's been something that I've kind of had to get stronger each day. I mean, and it is a long process. It's kind of every now and then I think, wow, I did that. I lived through such crazy times, and I was on my own with a newborn baby for 5 days, and it kind of makes you stronger eventually. At the time you think, oh my god, how can I do this? I can't get through this. But looking back now, it just made me stronger as a person, as a mum. It is the most. If you can get through that, you can literally get through anything as a parent, I think, especially as a new parent, as a first time mum, you know, having your newborn, learning to breastfeed without your kind of immediate support network is bloody challenging. So I just want this video to be positive. I don't think, you know, I don't want it to come across as scaring anyone. Like I say, maybe I should have prepared myself a little bit better for having to stay in hospital during a lockdown and without any visitors. To leave me any questions in the comment section down below, and I will do my best to answer them. But I just want this video to be really helpful for any expectant families, to prepare yourself for all eventualities, especially if your hospital isn't going to be allowing partners on the wards after your baby's born. Just prepare yourselves for that eventuality, because we weren't exactly prepared for that, and it might just help you get through it a little bit better. But yeah, hopefully you found this video useful. As I say, feel free to leave me a comment and I will get back to you. And good luck to any new mamas out there. During another lockdown, you will be absolutely fine and you are in very good hands. In whatever hospital, I believe you will be looked after and you can get through this, and it's going to make you stronger as a family. So thank you so much for watching, and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already for more videos like this, and I will see you again soon. Bye.